The law of polarity. Is this the hidden code behind everything? What if everything you believed to be opposite life and death, light and darkness, love and hate is not a contradiction, but a mirror? Across the globe, millions pray for peace. Yet, war has never truly left our planet. Every heartbeat we feel is the result of contraction and expansion. Even the universe itself is expanding because of a force we do not yet understand. Why does everything seem to move between two ends? Could the key to unlocking all of reality lie in a forgotten Hermetic law? This is the law of polarity. According to Hermetic philosophy rooted in ancient Egyptian and Greek wisdom, everything exists on a spectrum. Cold and hot? Same thing, different degrees. Good and evil? Points on the same moral wave. It is not duality, it is continuity. Let us go deeper. In the Hindu Upanishads, reality is said to emerge from Brahman, the undivided one that splits into many only to recognize itself through contrast. In the Tao Te Ching, Laozi teaches, when everyone sees beauty as beautiful, there is ugliness. In Kabbalistic Judaism, the tree of life maps human experience between pillars of mercy and severity, with the path of wisdom flowing through the center. When all see good as good, there is evil. This is not metaphor. This is metaphysics. The law of polarity teaches that any state of being emotional, physical, even spiritual can be transmuted by changing its degree. Fear to courage, despair to inspiration, cold to warmth. This is not magic. This is vibrational science. Ask yourself, are you stuck on one end of a spectrum you could actually move through? In ancient Egypt, the god Ma'at governed cosmic balance, not by choosing light or dark, but by harmonizing both. He believed that tension between opposites is not destruction, but the very engine of life. The secret was never hidden. It was just waiting for you to see the pattern. Even modern physics whispers the same truth. Matter and antimatter, positive and negative charge. Every electromagnetic wave has a crest and a trough. Nothing, absolutely nothing, can move without oscillation. But here's the twist. Polarity is not conflict. It is co-creation. The ancient Greeks knew this well. Heraclitus wrote, "Strife is justice." But what if the secret is not to pick one, but to understand both, to master the shift, to move between the poles with awareness? Why does this matter? Because we live in a time obsessed with choosing sides. Left or right, science or spirit, light or dark. This is not just ancient wisdom. It is a technology of consciousness. And that is the hidden code. So next time you feel lost in extremes, because if the sages were right, then heaven and hell are not places. They are frequencies. Like this video? Subscribe to explore more esoteric truths, ancient codes, and modern awakenings. Origins of polarity, ancient secrets lost in plain sight. What if the oldest civilizations on Earth did not just believe in gods and myths, but secretly understood the inner wiring of the universe? And what if that wiring, the blueprint of everything from human behavior to the spin of electrons, was hidden not in machines or computers, but in their temples, symbols, and sacred texts? How did the ancient Egyptians, the Taoists of China, and the mystics of the Andes all arrive at the same cosmic principle, that reality is built on the tension between opposites? Here is the question that hit me like thunder. Why do so many ancient cultures who never met, who lived thousands of miles apart, describe reality using the same dual structure? That is not coincidence. That is convergence. Pharaohs were judged not by their power, but by how closely they aligned with their principle. Every ceremony, every decision, every aspect of Egyptian life revolved around harmonizing opposites. Even death was not an end. It was a passage into a mirrored realm. In their sacred calendar, the Chu Kan, the duality of time, was encoded in every glyph. Their gods always came in mirrored pairs, one bringing fire, the other rain, one bringing earth, the other decay. In his secret school, the Tetrates, a triangle made of 10 dots, symbolized the unfolding of duality from the infinite. That blew my mind. How could geometry describe metaphysics? It was never about destruction. It was about regeneration. In the Rig Veda, the god Rudra is described as both creator and destroyer. The cosmic dance of Shiva, the Tandava, is literally the dance of polarity. Each beat of the drum is a cycle of birth and death, inhale and exhale, light and dark. It is not chaotic, it is divine rhythm. The Kybalion, a distillation of Hermetic wisdom, says, "Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree." To me, that line is not ancient, it is quantum. It describes everything from light waves to human emotions. And when you look closer, it gets even weirder. Yang, bright, active, warm. But here's the kicker, they are not enemies. They are two sides of the same whole, forever chasing, dancing, becoming each other. In ancient Egypt, around 3000 BCE, the goddess Ma'at was not just a deity of truth, she embodied cosmic balance. And we, in this digital age, are just now waking up to the echo. So the next time you feel pulled in two directions, remember, maybe that tension is not tearing you apart. Maybe it is tuning you. Because the deeper we go into these forgotten truths, the more we remember who we really are. Now shift your gaze to ancient China. The earliest references to yin and yang date back over 4,000 years. Yin, dark, receptive, cold. It is almost poetic. It is also stunningly precise. And then, journey across the globe to the Mayan civilization. You realize that every pain is a prelude to growth, that every shadow reveals the shape of the light, that suffering and joy, gain and loss, chaos and order, are not signs you are failing, but signs you are alive. These were maps of reality, drawn by people who listened more to the stars than to their egos, who watched the rise and fall of tides, of seasons, of kingdoms, and saw not randomness, but rhythm. They understood something we are just beginning to rediscover through science, that the universe is not a static machine, but a dynamic dance of contrast. Here is my personal confession. I used to think polarity was just a spiritual metaphor, a kind of poetic way to describe balance. But when I started digging through these ancient systems, I realized this is not a metaphor. This is physics. This is biology. This is consciousness. The Greeks were just as obsessed. Pythagoras, the math mystic, taught that the number 2 represented divided unity, the moment the one splits to create experience. Because they knew something we forgot. The law of polarity was not invented. It was discovered again and again, across time, like a buried compass pointing to a truth too vast for language. And let us not forget the Vedic tradition of India. But the question that haunted me was this: how did they all know? Was there once a unified knowledge? A primordial science encoded in symbol and ritual that taught how to live with polarity, not against it? Even the Hermetic texts written in Greco-Egyptian, Alexandria over 2,000 years ago, speak of the same law. And the more I read, the more I saw a pattern. These were not primitive myths. So why does this matter? Because when you start to see life through this lens, through the law of polarity, you stop fearing the other side. And that, to me, is sacred. Every ancient culture whispered this truth in its own tongue. Like a string pulled tight so it can sing. If this resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe. And believe me, we are just getting started. Can science prove ancient polarity? Here's what blew my mind. If everything is made of energy, why does energy always seem to need an opposite to exist? Why does every atom, literally every piece of matter in the universe, depend on the dance between a positive and a negative charge? And here is the mind bender. Why does even light, something we often think of as pure and singular, require darkness to be seen. These are not just poetic questions. These are scientific. And they force us to ask, has modern science unknowingly confirmed what ancient mystics already knew? Let me take you there. It is a relationship between a positively charged nucleus and negatively charged electrons in orbit. Take away the polarity, and the atom collapses. That means no molecules, no chemistry, no life, nothing, literally. No polarity, no universe. Start with the atom. It is the building block of reality, right? But an atom is not a solid thing. Now consider electricity. You flip a switch, and the light turns on. Seems simple, but what is actually happening? Electrons are flowing from a negative source to a positive one. That flow called current is made entirely possible by polarity. This is not spiritual allegory. This is wave mechanics. Polarity is not a metaphor. It is the math of reality. When I realized this exact pattern, this oscillation between poles is mirrored in ancient teachings from around the world. They fire due to a voltage difference created by sodium and potassium ions sitting on either side of a membrane. That tiny dance of charge is how you think, feel, dream. Polarity is not around you. It is in you. Every planet orbits due to gravity, balanced by inertia, a constant interplay between pull and release. Stars themselves exist because of fusion, where opposites meet, nuclei smashing together to birth light. And then there is antimatter, a perfect mirror of matter with opposite charge. When they touch, annihilation and pure energy release. Sounds like ancient myth, right? Without two opposing charges, your smartphone, your refrigerator, your entire digital life would not function. Every magnet, no matter how small, has a north and a south. Split it in half, and guess what? Each half still has both poles. You literally cannot separate them. The universe insists on polarity. For years, I had viewed science and spirituality as separate lanes. But now I see them as two tracks of the same train. Ancient mystics used metaphor. Today, scientists use measurement. But they are both mapping the same terrain. And it goes deeper. These two forces are not rivals. They are co-creators. In Taoism, yin and yang are never fixed. Because the deeper we explore this cosmic circuitry, the more we find that the oldest truths were never lost. They were waiting, like electricity, for us to flip the switch. They continuously shift into each other, like night turning into day. In physics, every wave, sound, light, even gravitational, is a pulse between high and low, crest and trough, up and down. That while we may swing between hope and despair, love and fear, silence and noise, it is our awareness that gives us the power to choose the direction. They carved this into temples, encoded it in rituals, whispered it through sacred chants. They did not call it atoms or electrons, but they saw it, and they lived it. So what shocked me most? In Vedic cosmology, the universe is born through the interplay of Purusha and Prakriti, pure consciousness and material energy. And here is the wild part. Modern biology echoes this too. Your heart? It beats because of a precise push-pull of electrical polarity. Your neurons? When I first saw this connection, I froze. Even astrophysics joins the chorus. And do not even get me started on magnetism. So here is my personal take. This is no longer about belief. It is about pattern recognition. The sages of Kemet, the yogis of India, the philosophers of Greece, they all described a dynamic universe built on opposites. And now, thousands of years later, particle accelerators, quantum field equations, and neural scans are echoing the same truth. Polarity is how things work. But here is the twist. The ancients also said, we are not victims of this polarity. We are its navigators. Science tells us what is happening. Mysticism tells us how to move through it. And to me, that is the real magic. Because the question is not just, can science prove polarity? The question is, Now that we know it is real, what will we do with that knowledge? Will we continue to fight the opposites or learn to dance with them? If this stirred something in you, hit like and subscribe. What about human consciousness? A battle within our own minds. Why do we sometimes cry at joy and laugh in pain? Why does love hurt and fear sometimes protect? If our emotions are supposed to help us survive, why do they so often seem to tear us apart from the inside? This is not just psychology. This is the raw, unexplained truth about human consciousness, an arena where polarity is not just observed, but felt viscerally, deeply, undeniably. And yet, with all this complexity, we are wired to feel everything through contrast. You cannot recognize happiness unless you have felt sadness. You do not know what peace is until you have lived through chaos. Here is the truth that startled me. The human brain has more neural connections than stars in the galaxy. Over 100 trillion synapses. That is how the nervous system works. That is not just poetic. Our minds operate on gradients, just like heat, light, and frequency. His entire theory of the shadow, those repressed parts of the self, was built on the idea that we are not whole unless we integrate both sides, the light and the dark. There is no switch for joy or despair. If your heart was too heavy with unresolved emotion, you could not pass into the afterlife. The entire scripture is a conversation about the tension between duty and compassion, action and surrender. It is about learning to live in between extremes. The Egyptians were not measuring morality, they were measuring harmony within. These were not moral binaries, they were psychological truths. They arise based on subtle shifts, on context, on memory. One kind word can bring tears. Why? Because extremes, even spiritual ones, lead to suffering. Balance is not a compromise. It is a form of awakening. I was the space that held both. That insight changed me. One forgotten gesture can shatter trust. But that effort made my darkness grow in secret. The more I denied my anger, the more it leaked out in passive aggression. The left brain focuses on logic, language, and linear time. The right brain handles emotion, intuition, and timeless perception. You are not one or the other. You are the bridge. And once we stop running from the opposites and start listening to them, something opens. The more I suppressed grief, the more it froze my joy. Polarity was not going away. It was waiting, demanding to be felt. Because maybe the most powerful thing you can do is not escape the polarity, but inhabit it. Because together, we are not just exploring ideas. We are exploring the very structure of our souls. So I began asking, if polarity is this deeply woven into our mental life, what does that say about who we really are? Carl Jung, a Swiss psychologist who revolutionized the study of the mind, once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." And this shook me. We reflect. We can observe our own emotions, name them, question them. We can mourn while laughing, hope while doubting, love while fearing. That complexity is not a flaw, it is the proof of our depth. Because for most of my life, I was trying to be just good, just positive, just light. What I found even more fascinating is how every ancient culture recognized this inner conflict and turned it into a spiritual practice. In ancient Egypt, the process of weighing the heart against the feather of Ma'at was not just a myth, it was a metaphor for psychological balance. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna stands paralyzed on the battlefield, not by weapons, but by moral polarity. Should he fight? Should he forgive? In Norse mythology, even gods like Odin and Loki embody internal contradiction, wisdom and madness, creation and destruction. And then there is Buddhism. One of the core teachings of the Buddha is the middle way, a conscious path between indulgence and denial, pleasure and pain, desire and detachment. I remember once sitting in meditation, feeling torn between overwhelming gratitude and unexplained anxiety. And in that moment, I realized I was not either feeling. Because the polarity of consciousness is not about choosing sides. It is about becoming spacious enough to witness both poles without becoming trapped in either. And here is something wild. Neuroscience now shows that our brain hemispheres themselves represent a kind of polarity. So what makes human consciousness so unique? Unlike machines, unlike animals, we do not just react. The law of polarity lives inside us. It is in every heartbreak, every breakthrough, every paradox we carry. Not perfection, not certainty, but wholeness. And that is what the ancient mystics meant when they spoke of alchemy, not turning lead into gold, but transforming fractured emotion into integrated being. So next time you feel torn between two feelings, two voices, two versions of yourself, pause. Feel both. Hold both. If this resonates with you, hit like and subscribe. And I promise there is so much more to discover. Two-sided universe. OR multidimensional canvas? What if it's both? If the universe is built on opposites, then what happens in the space between them? Is reality simply a war of black and white, or is it a painting made from infinite shades of gray, color, and light? That means even the matter forming your hand is not truly real until your perception collapses it into form. So ask yourself, what is more real, the object or the observer? Reality itself shifts based on how we look at it. So what does that say about the nature of the cosmos? Here is something that shook me. Your body is made of particles that behave like waves until they are observed. It gets stranger. Light, the very thing that lets us see, has a dual identity. It is both a particle and a wave, depending on how we measure it. But once you go deeper, those clean lines begin to blur, and the truth begins to stretch. And we, the observers, are not just bystanders, we are participants, even co-creators. What if the universe is not just a machine, it is an evolving art form? This is where polarity becomes more than a law. It becomes a paradox. Everywhere you look, you find polarities. Life and death, male and female, day and night. And even in Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks, each circle overlaps another, creating a net of infinite intersections. A map of multiplicity. This is not a binary code. It is a fractal unfolding of complexity from simplicity. A spectrum that bends, that loops, that spirals, that shifts depending on where you stand. In Buddhism, the idea of dependent origination says that nothing exists independently. Yugas cycle through light and darkness, wisdom and ignorance. There is no final battle between good and evil, only waves, with order and chaos, with success and failure. They are not destinations. They are dynamics, epics, the famous butterfly effect. And quantum mechanics teaches us that particles separated by light years can influence each other instantly, phenomenon called entanglement. What are we even looking at? We split things into light or dark, right or wrong, success or failure, because we are afraid of ambiguity. But polarity invites us to explore nuance, to become literate in paradox, to expand our awareness beyond either or. Seasons of consciousness, not indecision, but depth. Ask yourself, am I standing on the edge of an opposite, or am I staring into the full picture, the place where light and shadow create form, where sound and silence create music, where tension and release create movement? Everything exists in relationship. That means darkness exists only because there is light to contrast it. You are not alive in isolation. The white holds a drop of black. They swirl, forever becoming each other. Because here, we are not just decoding ideas. We are learning to read the universe as it writes itself through us. The message? Nothing is pure. Everything is process. There are no hard lines, only gradients of transformation. You are alive because you are part of a vast, interwoven whole. The Taoists saw this thousands of years ago. The yin and yang symbol is not static. The black contains a dot of white, and this idea echoes in every sacred geometry I have studied. In the flower of life pattern, found etched into the temple of Osiris in Egypt, in ancient Chinese tombs, I remember staring at it once, wondering, how could something this mathematically precise appear across cultures separated by oceans and centuries? And then it hit me. Maybe the universe is not binary at all. Maybe the law of polarity was never about picking sides, but learning to see the spectrum between them. In Hindu cosmology, time itself is not linear. It is a wheel. This changed how I view everything, because suddenly, opposites became perspectives. Hot and cold are not substances. They are degrees on a scale. Same with love and hate. Even in science, chaos theory shows us that small shifts in starting conditions create massive changes in outcomes. To me, it feels like the universe is not playing by straight lines. It dances, it spirals. It creates patterns too complex for the mind, but too beautiful to deny. So why do we keep thinking in terms of opposites? Maybe because we are still looking at the universe as a wall to break instead of a mirror to understand. And in that expansion, something opens. A kind of third space, not compromise. That is what I believe the universe truly is, a multi-dimensional canvas painted with polarities. Not a battlefield, not a balance beam, but a living work of art. So next time you feel torn between choices, emotions, or beliefs, pause. Because truth is rarely found in one pole or the other. It is found in the dance between them. If this sparked something inside you, hit like and subscribe. And what a masterpiece it is becoming. We are living inside a cosmic vibration, and IT is moving through you right now. What if everything you have ever felt, every surge of joy, every wave of grief, every gut feeling was not random emotion, but a measurable ripple in a larger field of vibration? What if reality itself is not made of things, but of frequencies? Here is something that cracked open my view of life. Scientists have discovered that the human body resonates around 7.83 hertz. That is the same frequency as the Earth's natural electromagnetic field, the Schumann resonance. We are literally vibrating in sync with the planet. Or is consciousness itself tuned into a larger cosmic rhythm? Coincidence? And then I asked myself, what if ancient civilizations already knew this? The ancient Indian Upanishads speak of Nada Brahma, the world is sound. In Egypt, the god Thoth was said to speak the universe into being through sacred tone. We are oscillating fields of perception, emotion, and thought. We are not just in the universe, we are of it. And like everything else, we exist in motion, in polarity, in flow. In the Hebrew Kabbalah, creation begins not with form, but vibration, the breath of God. Every breath, every brainwave. The oracle chambers at Delphi were tuned to amplify voice into trance. The Mayans aligned their temples with cosmic frequencies. This was not superstition. It was vibrational engineering. We do not think in solid lines. That does not mean faking positivity. It means attuning ourselves to a more coherent, conscious wave. We think in pulses. We feel in waves. Across cultures, sound, frequency, and rhythm are not just poetic symbols. They are the root of manifestation. They are tuning in, so will joy. But what defines us is how we ride the wave. So what does this mean for us? It means we are not static beings. And the more aware we become of this dance, the more we move with grace through its highs and lows. The law of vibration is not just a mystical idea. It is visible in every heartbeat. It is responding to us, like a tuning fork, like a mirror made of sound. But here is the twist. Most people never realize they can shift their frequency. Comment below. Let me know what you are tuning into. Because we are all part of this field. All vibrating, all shifting. Together. And this is where it gets personal. There was a time when I lived mostly in the lower band fear, doubt, regret. And I thought that was just life. But then I started studying ancient sound healing, and I felt something shift. Not instantly, but gradually, my inner landscape began to change. Meditation, music, silence, they became tools to retune myself. And that is when it clicked. The universe is not punishing or rewarding us. That blew my mind. Even the pyramid's acoustic marvels built with mathematically perfect resonance suggest the ancients knew this. So, are we just passengers on this ride? Not at all. Once we recognize we are part of this oscillating matrix, we reclaim the power to move within it, to choose where we want to vibrate. That is why the mystics meditated in caves, why monks chant in perfect harmony, why shamans drum until visions come. They are not escaping reality. And here is where it all leads. We live in a universe that breathes, that pulses, that swings between opposites, not in chaos, but in divine rhythm. Pain will come. So now I leave you with this. What frequency are you resonating at right now? What would happen if you slowed down, listened, and retuned? And if this made you feel something, if even one sentence landed somewhere deeper than your intellect, then share it. And believe me, our next video dives even deeper into this hidden music of reality. You do not want to miss it. Subscribe and join the resonance.